So UFOs are real, but they're probably just Russian or Chinese, right? Right? Let's talk about it. So the mainstream is getting in on it. They agree that UFOs exist, but they like to take it into the direction of Chinese or Russian spy drones or hypersonics, or these are kind of like being given as like the most likely explanation, and it's a national security threat because we need to match their technology. We've been ahead or equal, and suddenly if they've got this, they've jumped really far ahead of us, and we need to figure that out. And so I think this is a wise, it's obviously an implication, and it's a wise thing to focus on when you're taking a topic that is taboo and making it mainstream. And I think about this a lot with my experience when I was working on legalizing marijuana, or cannabis, as I prefer to call it, but um, let's not get into a whole thing about the name. And so there's a process that we have to go through with consciousness and perspective and how we feel about things. And we have a taboo around UFOs. It's something you don't talk about. You get made fun of for it, and it's not taken seriously. And so to shift that, we need to start in on topics or points that like can appeal to a mainstream perspective and still feel not like pushing outside of the boundaries too much. And so it makes sense. We focus on the fact that if it is, this is one possible explanation, that it's the, other humans on this planet running other governments, foreign governments, have secret programs that have jumped ahead of us, and we need to figure out what they're doing and so on. And, but I don't think it does a very good job of explaining what we're finding, is the thing. If you actually look at what the reports of the interactions with the UFOs are, and the history and the trends and the radar data and all these different bits of information, it doesn't really match up with like Chinese got some advanced tech and they're using it to spy on us, because why would they then take their tic tac drone or hypersonic plane or whatever and have it fly in circles close nearby another airplane? When you're spying, you want to gather information without being seen. Right? That's the point of spying. It's getting the info without the other people knowing that you got the info. And so, everything we've seen has shown that these UFOs, these distinguished UFOs that the Pentagon is talking about in the reports and so on, they do stuff that would make it very easy for them to evade our awareness. And that if we did detect them, they can get out of there like that because they're able to jump into super fast speeds, possibly shift dimensions. And so, they can be out of there. And now we have the Tic Tac story, and if you've watched the 60 Minutes, you know that the pilot talks about how he saw the UFO down here, and he was like flying around, trying to loop around so he could look at it, and it saw him doing that, and it started flying around. Let me see if I can do it right, so that they were mirroring each other, and until they, from coming up at different points, they were mirroring until they got to like the same level, and so if you're a Chinese drone operator or pilot who's controlling that tic tac, you don't go like, oh, I was spying on this thing and now the military jets have been scrambled to me, and I'm just gonna like play a little dance with them to show that I'm under intelligent control and kind of give them a close look at me, and then maybe I'll speed off. Like maybe it's just a really maverick, Top Gunny, give you the finger type of thing, take a picture of you with our Polaroid moment. But if that was the only incident, I would say okay, maybe. But it's like across the board, you've got these things constantly being easily like making it so that we can see them. So it's very not the type of thing you would expect from spies. And so you also factor that in with what I mentioned in my other video, which is the Chinese and the Russians and every other government all around the planet is all experiencing the same shit we are. And they've all got their investigations into it, and a lot of these countries have given up their declassified a lot of documents long before we've declassified anything. And in those countries, the conversation's already pretty mainstream. It's kind of like how we legalized weed here, and then it became more mainstream in other places. And so, we're catching up on UFOs. We're behind it, behind what the other countries on the planet are in terms of the conversation that they're having. So, but the data basically looks like all around the world, the mainstream government that is not like in these unacknowledged level is pretty much doesn't know what it is, and they're investigating it. They know it's real. So, that includes China, that includes Russia. China has programs where they're tracking UFOs. They're using like artificial intelligence to try and figure it out. So, it just doesn't, when I hear this whole thing of it's China, it's Russia, ET is very unlikely. It's actually much more unlikely that it's someone here on the planet. Like all these variables of like how you would factor it in, from the things that these things are able to do and like where we're at in our technology and everything, how much of a jump that would be. Like the only way that I think it makes sense that it's coming from people on our planet is if we're in a, start looking at the unacknowledged special access programs and breakaway society type of category of people. So it's like it's from our planet, but it's not from our mainstream. It's not from anything that's like part of like what we consider to be like real in a sense, because it's been done secretly in an ultra secret way. And this is the thing, like during World War II, we've been talking about the nukes. How did they create this nuclear bomb, Manhattan Project? How did they do the Manhattan Project? They secretly, in a very compartmentalized way, had scientists working at universities and labs, everything, all across the United States of America. And they had different industries that were providing resources. And they had all these people using all these resources in America, but everyone was just doing one little piece of it and didn't know how they fit into this bigger picture. This, professors working on this little section of a math equation that then gets, compiled somewhere else with another professor's little work. And so it's like, prevents any one person from knowing what's really going on, but it allows a secret way for things to be created. And so, people are always saying, oh, the government couldn't keep a secret. They've kept the fucking secret of this nuclear bomb right up until it came out. Like, people were like, holy shit, this bomb is going off. Now we know it exists. Before that, it was a really high-end secret that the other governments had some sense of through their spying, but they weren't able to figure out exactly what was going on. Just like we couldn't figure out exactly what they were doing, but we had a sense they were working on bombs too. So, yes, the government can definitely keep a secret when it wants to, and when it compartmentalizes like this and does what the military does, they do it well. They control intelligence. There's a whole game to that. But what was the number one secret during the World War II time? Turns out it wasn't the nuclear weapon, which seems like it should be the top one. It was actually the UFO stuff. That's like the even more secret that was going on. Like they were more worried about that getting exposed than the nuclear stuff. Because they were studying it, they were having these interactions with craft. While they were conducting the war, there was UFOs flying around, this Foo Fighter phenomenon. So they were very curious, and there was all sorts of stuff going on, like in LA, UFO that everyone shot at with all the anti-aircraft guns, and they had it in spotlights, and they got a photo of it. I mean, there's just so much stuff that happened at that time, and the government was like, okay, that's when they realized it's real, and we got to do something about it, and we got to figure it out. But they didn't want anyone to know, and they did everything they could to keep it secret, and that's where all the kind of dismissal as conspiracy theory and, disinformation campaigns and things that were created to basically take the people who were bringing up they're going, yes, there's this real UFO thing going on, and demanding the government to give us some, information about it. And the government was going, we got to keep this secret, and let's find ways to discredit these people and put them off into the fringe, which they succeeded at. Just like with cannabis. I always think about that whole history of taking something that was like used by everyone all around the planet in a very healthy way, and then like suppressing it and then making anyone who was like supportive of it into like a crazy person, and someone that you don't respect in society, and held it back for a while until eventually we broke through. And so I really see a similar thing happening with the UFOs, where now it's that shift is happening. It's breaking through into the mainstream. The information is overwhelming, and you can no longer just dismiss it the way that you could before. So now we have to have a new level of conversation about it. And once we got to the point where we got people realizing that marijuana was safer than alcohol, suddenly it was pretty easy to get it legalized. And now we're getting to the point where people are going, okay, there really are things flying in the sky that cannot be explained by conventional physics. And we're getting much more progress on actually getting some of that info out. But it's not going to come out easily, and it's going to, be piecemeal, and it's going to be step by step. The view has always been that, if we reveal this, it'll freak people out too much. That was a lot of the justification back in the World War II time, especially because they didn't know what it was. So it's like we can't reveal it and say that we don't know what it is, because now we don't have we can't provide the safety. Like we're scared of it too. We don't know what to do with it. We aren't capable of fighting it. And if we admit that it's there, then it we won't be able to like make people feel safe, and people won't be able to handle it, and it'll be too challenging to religious stuff, and so on and so forth. That's why part of this whole build up to disclosure has been like multiple things. One, these kind of step by step, making it much more globally acceptable to think that there could be life outside of Earth. Like that it was like, okay, there's all these habitable planets. Yes, life seems to develop everywhere. We've realized that bacteria survive in nuclear reactors, and where all the nuclear waste is and stuff. They found bacteria that are like, oh, we've evolved to eat the nuclear waste. So like life just it's everywhere. It's happening all the time, and so the chances that there might be life out there are very high. Like that shifted. It used to be a cultural thing. It was like, no, it's much more likely we're the only ones. Life is so rare. So that shifted. Several other kind of just I guess the religious thing shifted. That was a big block for people to accepting it, because you had the Pope starting to like talk about it and saying, if aliens exist, God's okay with that, and they're God's children too. And they had like symposiums at the Vatican and stuff to like talk about what happens if aliens get revealed, and like kind of like prepare for it. NASA was doing some stuff about that too. So like there's in the last decade there's been all these different things that have happened to like culturally shift us, and get us ready to a point where now we could be told that it's aliens and we don't know what to do about it, and they actually are technologically superior to us and we can't truly fight them. Though that also seems to not be where we're at. I mean, I'm trying to speak about it from, if I'm in a mainstream perspective, I'm just coming to this topic and what could it be? But then there's another part of me that's done a bunch of research and has an idea of what most likely is happening. And it seems like, we have been back engineering stuff for a long time, for at least like 50 years, 70 years. And we have tech that can fight back now. And we have the ability to actually already be leaving the planet. So this stuff is, I think, the thing that they don't want to reveal just right away, because that's a little bit too much. It also makes people go like, what the fuck? You guys did this secretly for so long. Like, you get, what else are you hiding from us? Like, there's a betrayal of trust. It's all the money that's just been run off in there. It's a mixture of the money that's like the military industrial complex money, but then there's also like the drug trades, secret crime syndicate money, and it's all the dark money that gets used to like fund and run these operations. So you get into that type of stuff, it's like they don't want that part revealed. And so the people within the group that have been running this stuff and actually have the true info, some of them are like, we want to reveal and tell everyone everything. Some of them are like, okay, we realize we have to reveal something because it's gotten to a tipping point, but we don't want to reveal everything. We just want to reveal enough that like gives us a good position to maintain our power. And so I think for them, that's this tiptoe into eventually saying it's aliens, but then trying to spin it as they're dangerous aliens that we need to fight, and let's all unite as one world in peace by fighting together against these, fearful aliens. And potentially, to convince us to do that, they use the back engineered technologies they have that look like alien craft to us and do some sort of false flag attack. So that's the conspiracy part, but it's also, I honestly seems the more you dig into it, the more that looks like it's the real deal of what's going on. And so I didn't mention in my other video, but I want to mention now is Stephen Greer is the source that I think is probably the most clear and accurate and consistent that I found, and that he's compiled the eyewitness testimony from people who have been credential checked and like had the top secret clearance or had the job at the FAA or who was the pilot or whatever, and he's got all that testimony, and he's had access. He's been involved in this for a long time, and he's been not just like gathering the information, but he's been doing something that no one else does, which is like actively going out to make contact. And he's got a whole library of recorded video and things like that of different times that they've been out to do contact and actually had interactions with craft and such like. So in terms of what the mainstream is talking about right now, like they're not even touching Steven's stuff because it's too weird. It's still too weird for mainstream minded people. It's way more comfortable to say, hey, okay, there's something flying around crazy, but it's probably just Russian, Chinese technology that somehow they got ahead of us, and we don't have to get into the secrecy of our government. We don't have to get into the weirdness of how these technologies and consciousness and all that is interact and intertwined. We just something a little more comfortable. And so I think we're going to start there, and it seems like that's where they want it to angle at when you look at what the Pentagon released in terms of their attempt to manufacture consent, their attempt to control the narrative. They pointed towards hypersonic stuff, and they tried to emphasize that we don't have any proof that it's aliens, and try to like dismiss the part where they're like, we don't have any proof that it's not aliens either. And actually, and when you hear Luis Elizondo, I think he was breaking it down as like, yeah, the chances that it is, just a mainstream government here on this planet who created it is like minuscule. Like that's a really small chance. It's much more likely to be aliens or something else. And I think that something else is the secret part of our society, which I talked about in the other video. So yeah, if you are interested in more of like what are all the things that could be, I listed that out in the video, and I'll try and put a link for that. And I think the reason that we have this focus on the China and Russia thing right now is it's the way to get our toes in the water, maybe get up to our knees in the water and start getting comfortable with it before they have to let us, okay, actually, that's not a feasible explanation. Actually, it is ET, and then they're probably going to be wanting to spin it towards they're dangerous. And so that's something to be aware of, and that's something that I think we all need to start talking about more. And I'll probably do some videos more on that topic as well. I've just decided I need to speak about these things because I know people in my life that I never see anymore, and normally I would tell you this while we were drinking because it's usually easier for people to hear it then, and people get more interested. But now that I haven't had that opportunity, and even if there wasn't a pandemic, being a father, I've kind of not going out in the party scene that much anymore. So this is my way to try and have a dialogue, conversation. I would like comments or questions. I'm just gonna kind of start taking free time to sit here and ramble about UFO stuff, and if see who finds it interesting. And I think I'll do some like Instagram live type stuff. So if there's people who want to like give questions, then it'll be a little easier. It's always more fun to like have a question and then see where that goes. One of my favorite memories of hanging out with anyone anywhere was at Christmas time with my cousins, and we'd all had just enough to drink to have the UFO conversation, and they just came at me with all their questions, and it was like hilarious and interesting and enlightening, and they had really cool ideas and questions that they brought into it, and that was awesome. So hopefully we create something like that with some live sessions and see what people want to say, because this is a topic I've really been into for a long time, and am so happy to see mainstreamed, and kind of felt that I'm supposed to try and help with the conversation about it. But normally I would be doing more of like stuff out in the world, but now with the way things my life have kind of settled out, it's a lot easier for me to try and do it through here. So anyone who wants to engage, I appreciate it, and I hope you're all good. Sending lots of love, be well, peace, and yeah, I think it's ETs.